Okay, so I just try to sort of recap, give up because in order to provide a context. So Bhagwan has sort of categorized students into three types: the good ones, and the mid-level ones, and the dull ones. For the good ones, he says that you should try to do vichara and meditate on my nirguna nirakara swarupa, right, as antaryami or pratyak chaitanya. If you go to the verse number, what is that verse? Ahamatma gudakesha sarva bhuta sayastita. Then for the ones, for the mid-level bright ones, good average, ahamadisya madhyam cha bhutanam ananta, bhutanam anta evacha. That is for you just meditate on me, saguna nirakara, as ishwara. I'm the beginning, I'm the end, I'm the middle point. I sort of sarva vritam, because that has mentioned that sarva, I sort of sustain everything, but I'm not sarva bhutasta. I'm not in any of these bhutas that he had mentioned earlier. Now, then he's talking about specific appearance of the divine excellence through different expressions. And that's how he's saying, I'm the Samaveda among Vedas, and I'm Shankara among the Rudras, and I'm Trigu among the monks, all that he's mentioning. And in the 30th verse, similarly, he's saying that among the, if you look at the jungle, and so many kinds of animals are there. Mriganam chum mrigendroham. I'm the lion. If you look at, so is God an animal? No, no, he's not talking about that. You try to see what he's trying to explain to us here. He's essentially emphasizing on the expression of divine excellence. He's actually everywhere. Is he not there in the insects? Is he not there in the snake, the birds? He is everywhere. So why is he saying that I'm the lion? Is he trying to exclude everyone else? No, because he just mentioned, clarified that in the verse number 20th. Aham atma gudakesha sarva bhuta sayastita. I'm everywhere. I'm hidden. I'm the witness self. And all those who are living. He has already clarified. Now he's saying, I'm Bhrigu, I'm this, I'm that. What does that mean? He's essentially sort of metaphorically explaining the manifestation of divine excellence, which takes names and forms, so that the dull one finds it as an instrument, as a prop to meditate on him. That is what he's trying to say, because that's kind of his lila sarira. It's his whole game is going on. His creation is essentially not 100% true. From Vaishnava point of view, yes, it's 100% true, but from strict Vedanta point of view, it's not at all true. It's just a strong appearance. It's a Vyavaharika Satya, not Paramarthika Satya. Then in the verse number 31, he says, Pavanaha Pavata Asmi. Among all that sort of keeps moving or purifies, I am the air. Ramah Sastrabhritamaham. Among all those who carry weapons, I'm Lord Ram. Actually, he's Ram, but he's sort of ruling away others. Does it mean he's not Krishna? He's not Parshuram? No, all of them had weapons in their hands. Is he saying I'm not there? Because you earlier said that among the heads of armies, I'm Skanda, I'm Kartikeya. So he's also a Sastradrit, isn't it? But right now he's saying Rama. These are apparent confusions because Bhagavan is trying to pick up any category of manifestation of the divine principle that you choose to talk about. If you pick up the excellent one there, that is divine. That is not Aksharika Satya. Don't take it literally. This is meant for, he has clarified in the, Madhusudana Saraswati has clarified that this is meant for the average students to meditate on him. They are finding it really hard to look for God. They are not such jnanis, they are not sukshma buddhi sampanna. And therefore, they have been given certain usual ways to, it's like a boy, little boy, asks his father, I want a Mercedes car. Actually, if his father gives him a Mercedes car, he said, no, I don't want it. I just want the Mercedes car. So he wants the doll car, the toy car. So once you give him the toy car, he's very happy. And then when he grows up, then he realizes what a car is. He just doesn't understand. He has to be at least 4 or 5 years of age to know that this particular toy car is not a car, because that's what he knows is the car. So he wants a Mercedes car. He has seen it in the picture and the ads. The dad purchases and gives it to him, that particular small model toy car. So Bhagavan is kind of giving him the toy, gods, the toy Brahmans with names and forms. So Don't you take it very seriously. These are toys that he's mentioning about. Pavanaha Pavatam Asmi. So among all that purifies, all that moves, I'm Pavana, I'm air. Ramaha, Lord Rama, among all those who are efficient and they are excellent with their weapons, I'm the one, Lord Rama, the best. Because he is not only the carrier of weapons, but he is the one who picks a weapon to sort of defend truth, to defend what is just, and therefore he sort of, and all of the thing in Krishna and all, he's not fighting, he's sort of ensuring these things happen. He's using his brain power, he's using his charm, he's using his intelligence, his ability to influence situations. He's not directly fighting in Mahabharata. He could do it in 1 minute, he could finish it off, but he doesn't do it. Jhasanam Makarashasmi, among all these fish, the category of animals, which the aquatic animals, I am Makaraha, the shark, the largest one, most ferocious. Srotasam Asmi Jannavi, among all the water bodies which have some flow, that means all the rivers, I am Ganga. So this is not rocket science. We'll do the Sabdartha, and Sabdartha we have done, we'll do the Sankara Bhashya here, very brief here. Pava iti pavano vayuhu, that is what is pavana. Pavatam, pavaitrinam asmi. Pavaitrinam will mean purifiers. Because you see, if there's a lot of stench or something, if there's air pollution, what does the government wait for? It waits for some movement of air in cities like Delhi. Okay, if there's like in cities of Bombay, despite a lot of people and a lot of slums and all, air is relatively cleaner because it's surrounded by the Arabian Sea. So also in cities like Chennai, they are not so polluted because they have this. You always have these sea wind and land wind, isn't it? Calcutta or Chennai, Mumbai. Delhi is not so. It's kind of landlocked. So when you have a lot of pollutants in the particulate matter in the air, is heavy pollution in the winters because the air isn't moving. So they wait for the smog to sort of dissipate through movement. So that is what air, movement of air purifies. If a bad stench, it sort of goes away. Ramaha Sastrabhatam Aham Sastranam Dharaitrinam. All these people who pick up weapons, I am Sri Ram. Dasarathi Rama Aham. So I am son of Dasaratha. Jhasanam Masyadinam. So Jhasanam is not only fish but all aquatic animals. Makaro Nama Jati Vishisho Aham. I am that special class of aquatic animal called Makara. And what is Makara? And sometimes Makara here also sort of means also, I think it's the largest fish, isn't it? Shark. Srotasam Sravantinam Asmi Janhavi Ganga. So all these streams and rivers, I am Ganga. That's what he briefly mentions. Not much will be there, nothing great will be there in Madhusudan, so we could skip it because we have two more important verses coming after this. Prabhatam Pavitranam Vegavatam cha Madhye. Vegavatam, that is, anything which is moving, dynamic. Va Madhye Pavano Vayu Ahamasmi. Sastravitam Sastradharinam Yuddha Kushalanam. Sastravitam is people who are very smart with weapons, not for the heck of carrying them, but because they're very strong in fighting in battles. Madhya Ramadasaratihi Akhila Rakhasukula Chayakaraha Parama Biro Ahamashmi. I'm the greatest of the fighters and most bravest of fighters who had put an end to Rakshasakula. So the remember the Rakshasas, the Daityas and the gods, as I have explained to you earlier, are actually brothers, okay? Unlike what the Marxists in JNU or other places are trying to portray them as proletariat, as working class, stuff like that. Actually, they're just difference in nature. They also have divine origin. Ravana was actually son of a very, very learned Brahmin monk, Vishrava Rishi. So Parama Biro Ahamasmi Sakshad Swarupasya Api Anena Rupena Chintanartham Vrishninam Vasudev Ahamasmi Itivat Atra Patha iti Praguktam. So the way it's only for Chintana, it's only for meditation. Okay? It's not that you start worshipping a shark saying that it's Lord Vishnu or something. Jasana Masyana Madhya. Of course, if you have seen that movie Live Baba Pai, there's this funny scene, isn't it? He's not having anything to eat, forgetting that character's name, and he's saying, "What do I do? You are the fish, and you are the Vishnu avatar because there was a Matsya avatar, and I have no option because we are stuck in this boat, and there's a lion, and this other guy. I'm going to die, so I'm going to eat you." You know, there's a funny dialogue over there, but that's not what is the purpose of these words here. The purpose of the verse is to sort of meditate on the Lord with names and forms. If you are not able to understand His real nature, which is without names and forms, without any qualities. Jasana Mashyana Madhye Makaro Nama Tat Jati Vishesha. I'm of that particular category of aquatic animals. Srotasam Vegena Chalat Jalanam Nadinam Madhye Sarva Nadi Shrestha Jannavi Ganga Aham Asmi. So among all these moving water bodies, that means rivers and streams, Srotasam, Vegena Chalat Jalana, whatever sort of flows with ferocious speed. If you look at Ganges, I haven't seen another river which is so forceful. Nadina Madhye, Sarva Nadi Shrestha, Jannavi Ganga Ahamasmi. And in the next two verses, the next one, there is a lot of what do you call it, Nyaya philosophy. I'm just alerting in advance in Madhusudana. I'll try to sort of avoid as much as possible because that will take us to a completely different debate altogether. I mean, what is mentioned here is actually 1 year course in Nyaya that he just mentions because there is just one word there, Badaha Prabhadatam Aham. So I'll try to simplify as much as I can for your benefit. सर्गाणाम् आदिरन्तस्य मध्यं चैवाहमर्जुन आध्यात्मविद्याविद्यानां बाधः प्रवदतामहम् सर्गाणाम् आदिश्च अन्तश्च madhyam cha evam arjuna. So now he's talking about the particular category or koti in Sanskrit of manifest realities, what it refers to as whatever are born or whatever are created sargas. So here, don't you think it's kind of repeating it? Somebody will raise that issue, right? That is for taking. Because he will just mention that bhutanam. So adisya antasya, you just mentioned, again you are mentioning it. No. He's saying sarga here refers to the achetana varga. Bhutani, that earlier, refers to the chetana varga, all the living beings. Here is the non-living beings. And God is everywhere. So he's trying to show that pantheism, that his presence everywhere, that immanence. Then so it sort of fits into our logical things. Because there's no place where God isn't there. Please understand that. Because he's that substratum of all that appears as real. He's the foundation, like that white wall against which we see pictures of films or cricket matches or whatever you call it. So, Adishcha Antascha Madhyamcha. So, I am the beginning, I am the end, I am also the middle. So, Evam Arjuna. This is how you understand me. That means there is no particular state, Utpatti, Sthiti, Vinasha, where whatever you see, whether it is living or not non-living, understand that it's me which is appearing as Chetana or Achetana during its creative phase, its dissolution phase, and its continuation phase. Right? These are the three states. And then Adhyatma Vidya Vidyanam. Among all these sciences, I am the Adhyatma Vidya. Why? Why so? Because I am the science of the self, which is a very complex subject. I mean, the whole Bhagavad Gita, all the Vedas and the Upanishads include Buddhism and Christianity, everything. What are these all about? These are all about Adhyatma Vidya. There's a lot of rituals, going to Swarga and all. That part is not very Adhyatma Vidya, somewhere related to the self, but the science of the self. Who are you? Why the hell we feel bad sometimes? Why they feel we feel elated? Where do we make a few mistakes that we feel stuck with something? Where do we unknowingly make certain good things that suddenly there is a there's a reward for which you haven't worked? It just comes our way. And why we get it? Why we don't get what mentally we know we deserve, whether it is a particular increment or a bonus or a particular benefit on an investment. Why? Whatever mentally sounds very logical to us doesn't happen sometimes. Slightly different, more or less can happen. Out of the blue, something terribly wrong can happen, and we have no clue to it. And we are constantly struggling to make sense of who we are. Why do we think the way we do? Why do we behave the way we do? And where is the answer to all this? It's in Adhyatma Vidya, because that is what is going to give us liberation. And Bhagavan says, I am that. So, again, don't take it literally. What he's saying is, if you are looking for what most appropriately represents my grace in the field of knowledge, in the field of science, it's Adhyatma Vidya. Okay, the science of the self. Among argumentations, there are different kinds of arguments. We had a very rich tradition of argumentation in India, starting with the 3rd century BC. We had Gautama Muni who wrote the Nyaya Sutras, and then there were a lot of commentaries on that. Now, Nyaya Sutras, there is a such. I mean, it's very sad that in India we study a lot of Western philosophy. We study Aristotle and many other philosophers. Nowhere we actually study much about Nyaya. And in fact, Bengal was the capital of Nyaya Darshana. Some of the greatest Nyayikas who were born either in Mithila, that until North Bihar, or Nadia, or West Bengal. These are the three centers. And later on, Kasi. Both Bengali intellectuals and Maithili intellectuals, they will all go there to study. Sort of Kasi emerged later on, and then certain parts of South India, but the logical thing, logical, they're far ahead of all other places if you look at them, their literature. And the great Raghunatha Shiromani, I mean, there's a lot of joke about him that how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and he were going on a boat and he had written certain arguments and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he sort of said, I'm also going to the king. And Raghunatha Shiromani says, so have you written something? He said, yeah, I have just made a few remarks. And he read them out and Raghunatha Shiromani sort of started weeping because this young man had written some very beautiful arguments which he cannot even understand fully, he cannot appreciate. So he'll not get any reward for what he has written. So he sort of, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sort of threw away whatever I have written to the Ganges, saying, let's go to the king, you get the reward, I respect you most. So people say that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a greatest scholar of his time in Nadia, but then he never published anything that he wrote. But then this is what is Kimbanan, these are the stories. Okay. Now he's saying, I'm Vada Katha. And what is Vada Katha? In very layman's language, if there is an argument between two people, what is the purpose of it? You want to win the argument or you want to defeat the other person. But there is, in our tradition, there is something called Vada Katha. Vada means what? It's not a fight. It is together, you're sitting at a particular place and you're looking for truth. Therefore, you correct each other in order to establish the thing which is most approximate to truth. I like one sentence of Bible here. It's just coming to my mind. Jesus at one point says in the Bible, let us, you and I, argue together. In fact, I personally think this is something on which one should sort of see a similarity of thought between Vada Katha and the Christian tradition, in which Bhagavan says, let's argue, you and I, but he adds one word, together. So the argument is not regarding the ultimate truth. The argument is about two principles. One is that it sort of is enshrined in a manner, in a tradition in which there's no enmity, there's love, and there is a joint search. And the second thing is that there is togetherness. And we also have this whole great tradition, Sahanavavatu, Sahanobhunatu, Sahaviryam Karamavahai, Tejasvinavaditamastu, Ma Vidvisa Vahai. There should not be any enmity. So guru and teacher and student together they pray. So we have this tradition. So Bhagavan says, I'm that Vada Katha. And we will see some technical details without going into much details because then we'll be lost. So we'll look at this. Now, let us look at the commentary aspect of it, what he is saying here. Sarganam iti sarganam srishti namadi antasya. Srishtinam, whatever is creation, is created, adischa antasya. Adihi antasya madhyam cha evam eva aham utpati sthiti laya aham arjuna. So I am sort of together all these three things he's saying quickly. Bhutanam jiva adhishtanam eva adihi antasya iti utpati uktam upakrame. So I have already mentioned that. When I mentioned the bhutas, the same thing applies there. I have already mentioned in the upakrama in the introduction. Ihatu sarvasya eva sargamatrasya iti. Here I'm talking about whatever has found a physical form, a material form, which means whatever has been created. Remember, whatever is created, whatever has appeared, right, in Vivartavada. Sargamatrasya iti visheshaha. Then he's talking about Adhyatma Vidya. Adhyatma Vidya, Vidyanam Moksharthatvad Prabhanam Asmi. Among all the sciences, like you study geography, you study um, psychology, again comes very close to Adhyatma Vidya, but you study, say, even you study science and mathematics, whatever you study, you never feel very happy, isn't it? Because that doesn't give you that inner peace or love or contentment that you're looking for. So you want to know who you are, isn't it? You want to figure out what this life is all about, and that is provided in Adhyatma Vidya. What Bhagavan is saying, Moksharthatvat, because it gives you that freedom from the darkness of getting stuck in this life in a manner in which we are pursuing it. It's a continued process of getting stuck with our ignorance. But what sort of lifts us out of this existence is wisdom, knowledge, is self-awareness, and that comes through our engagement with and in Adhyatma Vidya, the science of the self. Bado artha nirnaya hetutvat pravadatam pradhanam ataha sa aham asmi. So among the people, if you talk about two people who are arguing, different schools of argumenters, Pravadatam, he's saying, what is the purpose of Vada? Vada is for Artha Nirnaya. It's not to win or lose a battle. It's not to defeat the other one that you see in the TV studios these days. None of them are interested in what is true. Very rarely. And they have their own agendas, they have their own financiers. So they all come up, and so the idea is you are on our side, on the other side, whether it is India or in US, you pick up TV channels, they're all divided. You don't know where to go, actually, which one to watch, which is somewhere close to close. You don't find that. I mean, they might appear like very impartial, but if there's a war or there is a very complicated issue or there's a political fight or anything, you all know that you have nowhere to go except the Discovery Channel or the animal world or stuff like that, where it's much more peaceful. Okay, so vado arthanina hetuta pravadatam pradhanam ataha saha ahamasmi. प्रवक्तृद्वारेण वदनभेदानाम् एव बाधजल्पवितण्डानाम् इह ग्रहणं pravadatam iti. So why he's mentioning this pravadatam, this word? Because he's saying there are other ways of argumentations. Like what? There is something called jalapa, vitanda. All these things are there. And we will do that when we are getting into our dear friend Madhusudana Saraswati, because he makes a very long argumentation on that. Will be a little challenging, but I'll try to make it as simple as possible. Sarganam achetana srishtinam adihi antasya madhyam cha utpati sthiti laya aham eva he Arjuna. So this is what Shankaracharya says. He is repeating. There's nothing new there. I'm not also trying to elaborate it again. Bhutanam jiva avishtanam. That is what he has already mentioned earlier. So all the Chetanatvena Prasiddhanam Eva Adi Antasya Madhyam Cha Iti Uktam Upakrame. I have said that again, taking the same sentence of Shankaracharya. Iha to Achetana Sarganam Iti Na Paunarakyam. So there is a Punarukti dosha in Sahitya. You cannot repeat it. Okay, it's called repetitive thing. So you cannot do it. So he's saying, no, no, it's not a punarupti. It's not a wastage of time and attention of space, because that was for the Jiva Avishta. It's about Chetana Varga, and this one is for Srishti Matra, as Shankaracharya said. Vijnana Madhya Adhyatma Vidya. Same thing that Shankara says, Mukhya Hetuhu Atma Tattva Vidya Aham. So there is one interesting thing here. There is some effort by Madhusudana without going into details, which he's capable of because he's such a great saint and a scholar. He's just mentioning what is that Adhyatma Vidya? He's saying Atma Tattva Vidya Aham, signs of the self. It's I'm that Vidya and that science about the self. Atma Tattva Vidya Aham. Then he's talking about Vadaha Pravadatam Aham, and that will take a lot of time. We'll try to do it as simply as possible. What does he say there? He's saying, look here. Pravadatam, Pravadat Sambandhinam. Pravadata means it's about not only sort of arguments, but all these practices, all the processes and people associated with Pravadat Sambandhinam. Katha Vedanam. So there are different kind of kathas. Bada Jalpa Vittandatmakanam Madhye Vado Aham. So there is Bada, Jalpa, and Vittanda, and others are included there. If you take Vada, Jalpa, and Vittanda, I am Vada there. Madhye Vado Aham. Okay, that is how he's mentioned. Then he sort of goes on. Bhutanam asmi chetana ityatra yatha bhuta sabdena tatsambandhinah parinama lakshitaha तथा इह प्रवद शब्देन तत्संबंधिनः कथा भेदा लक्ष्यन्ते. He's a great scholar, so every word that is said, he finds the context as to why that is accurate. He's saying when he mentions bhutanam, so he's talking about bhuta sambandhinam, isn't it? And tat sambandhinah parinama, whatever is kind of manifest. Similarly, when you're saying pravadatam, so he's saying what is intended to be said. Pravadat savadena tat sambandhinah katha vedaha lakshante. So all the types of conversations, that is what is being hinted here. Atah nirdharana upapattihi. Nirdharana sasti or saptami. That is the grammar part, vibhakti part. Okay, that will again come in the next verse where he says, I am Dvanda Samasa, and that will be a little challenging unless I mention a little about Samasa. Try to do it in a very simple way. Yatha Srutetu Ubhayatrapi Sambandhe Sasti. So even though it is Sambandha Sasti, again it's like amongst them I am the best one. That is Sambandha Sasti. He's saying it looks like that the actual grammatical rule which is applied here is Nirdharana. Okay. Tatra Tattva Bhuvusyor Vitaragayoho. Now the whole argument starts about what is Vada Katha, what is the conversation. First thing, there is the Jalpa Vittanda, you don't have to be Vitaragi, you don't have to be Mumukhu. Please understand why. I told you Jalpa means what? You want to win. That is Jalpa. Jalpa means purpose is to win. By hook or by crook, you want to win. Vittanda is you shall not present any view. Jalpa, both will have their own views. They want to establish their view and defeat the other one. That is what is Jalpa. In a very layman's language, understand this. Jalpa is you have a certain viewpoint and the other one has a viewpoint. Both have their viewpoints. You try to show how your viewpoint is superior to the viewpoint of the other person. Okay, this much is called Jalpa. What is the purpose? Is it to, establish truth? Nothing of that sort. The purpose is to win. As soon as the other person loses, you are the winner, the argument ends. How does that person lose? We have some rules of argumentation. There are some 27 nigraha sthanas. Nigraha sthanas is parajaya sthanas. Something like you change a pratigya, you change a premise, you change some argument, and there are different logical rules. So if you violate those universally accepted rules, then you lost the battle. Okay. Like for example, you are saying I'm a Sankara Vedanti. There is an argumentation. You're starting. Suddenly you start quoting from Ramanuja. Ramanuja says this. Sorry, how are you quoting him? Is he your school of thought? No, sorry, you cannot use his argument because he's a Parinamavadi, Brahma Parinamavadi. You are Vivartavadi. Stick to your arguments. Don't bring his argument. They'll say no. You have lost the battle. So here Jalpa is about a victory. That is simple. Vitanda is slightly different. Vitanda, in Western sense, is about finding inconsistency in the argument of the other person. You don't have to have any view. A Vaitandika, and this is a very popularly used word in Eastern India. They say that this guy is a Vaitandika. He's doing Vitanda. You can't argue with him. You know why? Because Vitanda is also very skillful. It's also accepted as one of the forms of debates. Now, what happens in Vitanda is that you are so skillful, whatever he says, you immediately note down and you find faults with what he has said. And he said, you said this is your premise, now you are doing it. Sorry, the argument doesn't hold. So he's forced to change his opinion so many times that he sometimes brings his own foundation into question, he loses the battle. So finding internal inconsistency, rendering any argument incoherent, that means not internally consistent. That's all you are doing. So, as I was telling, in philosophy, there's something correspondence theory of truth or coherence theory of truth. The Vaitandika is looking at the coherence thing. He has to destroy the view that you have a coherent argument. He's trying to tell you that your argument is incoherent, internally inconsistent. But the Vadakathakara, who is having an argument, he is not trying to defeat you. He's interested in something else. What is he interested in? He's interested in truth. So what will he do? He'll not fight with you. He'll make you an ally and he will say, let's you and I search together for truth. So you're saying this, I have no problem. Let's reach there. So generally in all tradition, despite all the big talk about Vadakatha, everybody indulges in what is called Khandana Mandana. Khandana means defeat the other person's argument, and Mandana is proving your point of view. That's what everyone does, more or less. But the Bhagavan says, I'm Vadakatha. I'm above all these kinds of people who are trying to defeat the other and establish their truth. I'm the one conversation through which people explore truth. To me, this is the most spiritual thing about how we can actually bring the academic way of thinking, philosophical way of thinking, rational, indulgence in intellectual indulgence in argumentation in a conversation, with the spiritual aspiration to realize truth. This is very beautiful, actually. So the whole Vedanta, as you understand, has to be, in a way, an intellectual exercise, fine, where the purpose is actually liberation. The purpose is not satisfaction in intellectual victory, that is alpha. Not the goal is not intellectual defeat of your opponent, that is vitanda. Here, the purpose is to actually reach a stage where you can drop all your intellectual wisdom to get the real wisdom, that is awareness of the self. That is Vadakatha. So this is a beautiful thing. He will speak in his technical language. We'll try to protect ourselves and try to do as much as we can. So what does he say there? Tatra tattva bhuvushoho. So there are two people who have bhuvusa, the desire to know what? The tattva. That is Atma tattva. Tattva bhuvushoyor, bhuvushoha, vitaragayaha. And they are vitaragis. That means raga, dvesha and all they have abandoned. They have antakarana suddhi. Sa brahmacharya, guru shishyorva. So guru or shishya, maybe guru shishya are together discussing, or maybe there are two brahmacharis sitting, okay, and they have taken vividisa sannyasa, they are discussing this, what is this Veda Tattva? Pramanena Tarkena cha. So there is Pramana, okay, and there is Tarka. So Tarka again is a very technical term, okay. Tarka is what? I'll give you a very simplest answer. You say that this mountain has fire, and then you will ask me, how do you know? No, because I know wherever there is fire, there is smoke. Wherever there is smoke, there is fire. Here the smoke is coming. So therefore there is fire. Then you'll say, but, and if there is no fire, there should not be any smoke. Because I have seen there is in Sahacharya, wherever there is smoke, there is fire. You cannot have smoke without fire. So if you are saying there is no fire, why is there smoke? That's a very simple layman's way of explaining the tarka. In order to sort of assert the truth by having a particular proposition with the person you're arguing, that is kind of tarka. So pramana tarkena. Okay. So what is pramana? That will be pratyakya, anumana, upamana, right? Arthapati, anupalabdhi, shavada, all that we have studied, 6 types, right? Here, what is essentially saying is that pramanena tarkenecha sadhana dusanatma. So you try to do this argument and you try to defeat this particular thing, find faults or weaknesses. Tas samandhinaha katha veda lakhyante. Okay. Ato, sorry. Tarkenecha sadhana dusanatma sapakya pratipakya parigraha tattva nirnaya pariyonta vadaha. So sapakya and pratipakya grahana both are kind of joining hands. Sapakya and pratipakya. Pakya pratipakya parigraha tattva nirnaya pariyanta. Together they should be able to appreciate the truth. That is what is vadaha. Taduktam. Pramana tarka sadhana upalambha सिद्धांत अविरुद्ध पंचावयव उपपन्नः पक्ष प्रतिपक्ष परिग्रहो वादः. So this sentence itself will take about 2-3 classes. So I'll try to avoid as much as getting trapped in the conversation and nyaya. There is something called panchavayava. So there is something called anumana. Anumana is what? Inferential knowledge. There is smoke, therefore there should be fire. And what is panchavayava? There is something called swartha anumana, parartha anumana. Swartha is for yourself. You have seen in the kitchen, whenever there is smoke, there is fire. And then Bhuya Darsanena, you have seen this again and again. You have seen that in the Jagya Mandapa, you have seen this in your picnic party, wherever there is smoke, there is fire. And therefore, once you are standing in front of a mountain and you see fire is coming, smoke is coming from a mountain, then immediately you say there is a jungle fire. There's a, as they call wildfire in different parts of the West. Now, this is your anumana. You are not seeing the flame. You are not seeing that glow, the redness, or anything, but you say there is fire. That's why we are seeing smoke. But if you are knowing it for yourself, that is swartha anumana. But you are doing it for another person, then there will be 5 statements, the Aristotelian syllogism. So in detail, there will be something called pratigya, the first statement. So, you're saying that Ayam Parvatah Vanhima, this mountain has fire. Why? Dhumavatva. Because I see a lot of smoke there. Then you'll give the Vyapti thing. Okay? So Hetu, then you will give that particular thing. Yatratra Dhumaha Tatatra Vannihi. Wherever there is smoke, there is fire. And where did you see Jasa Mahanasam? Tata, you see, I have seen that. So in the Mahanasam is kitchen. I have seen that in the kitchen. And then you say in the kitchen. And then you say there is a Upanya Vakya, there is a Tathachayam. Here also the same piece is there. The Nigamanam, the final sentence. Tasma Tatha. Therefore, it is also like that. Here also I am seeing smoke, and therefore it must be coming out of fire. So these are the Panchavayavas in every Tatha. Therefore, it is also like that. Here also I am seeing smoke, and therefore it must be coming out of fire. So these are the Panchavayavas in a very brief way, because there's a long dialogue as to what way, because there's a long dialogue as to what is Paramarsha, what is Anumana, what is Linga, what is Vyapti. All these are technical words. Okay. So Vyapti again is Niyata Sahacharya. So there is a particular Vyapya, Vyapaka, Samparaka. And there has to be, it should be loyal. Niyata Sahacharya. Like you have a couple. So, so what happens like Ram, Sita, whatever. So wherever they are in love, you have in your college days, if you remember. So there's a boy and a girl. They are in deep love with each other. So wherever you see the boy, the girl will be also there. Wherever you see the girl, the boy is also there. So when that sort of a samparka is there, vyapya, vyapaka, you see X, you see Y. If you see Y, you see X. That's called Niyata Vyakti. So, Samaniyata, Tvam, both of them are congruent with each other. Then one follows the other. That is simple sadhana. It's not Samaniyata Tvam, but it is also Vyakti. Niyata Sahacharya. And vyabhichara means actually not that sexual disloyalty or anything. Vyabhichara means where you have an instance of smoke without fire. If you can show that to me, that will be vyabhichara. So how do you establish vyapti? How do you establish that sahacharya? Because here it's all logic. It's about cause and effect. Remember, it's very scientific. You want to say that this particular effect is there because of this particular cause. So it's all scientific argumentation. If you can have a vyabhichara, means there's something else happening without that causal element being present, then you have to find out why that is happening, isn't it? So, in order to remove all possibilities, you have to establish that yes, that so essentially he's saying this is through this particular praksha pratipaksha parigruha vadaha pramana taraka sadhana upalambha. So that praksha pratipaksha parigruha vadaha pramana taraka sadhana upalambha. So that upalambha is tiraskara of the argument of the other person who are against your siddhanta or your preferred view or what you think is closer to truth. Siddhanta aviruddha. You refute certain parts and you accept certain parts, so you propose something which is siddhanta aviruddha. You have certain conclusions or whatever you're trying to reach in your parampara, in your shastra. So your argument and then together you are doing a good conversation and then you reach a conclusion where both the parties are happy. That is what is vada. Vada phalasya tattva nirnayasya durdurvadi vadini Vadi Nirakaranena. So there are certain people who are completely opposed to whatever you are saying, right? They're very difficult ones. Contradicts his personality. Whatever you see, they'll find some faults or anything. Sarankhanartham Vijigishu Kathe Jalpa Vitande Jaya Parajaya Matra Paryante. On the other hand, he's saying there is no Bada Tattva Nirnaya, no one is interested. What are they interested in? They're interested in either in defeat or in win. Okay, and so they are only interested in that particular intermediate result of a defeat of the opponent or a victory of your side people. Taduktam tattva adhyavasaya saranchanartham jalpa vitande bija praroha saranchanartham kantaka sakha pranavat. So now the question will come, is jalpa and vitanda completely useless even for a good spiritual person? Why Sriharsa Mishra wrote that famous book called Khandana Khanda Khadya, where he's refuting all Dvaitis. He's refuting all the Nyaya philosophers. Everybody's refuting. Nyaya and Sankhya Mata and the Vaisheshika Mata. He's just refuting one by one. Mimamsaka Mata, the early Vedic school of arguments. Because he has to establish Advaita, refuting and defeating everyone. He was the most intelligent person who has written a most difficult philosophical text called Khandana Khandakadya. Okay, why is he doing that? He's Advaita Vedanti. Similarly, if you look at Sankaracharya, he's refuting the Buddhist arguments, Sankhya arguments, Nyaya arguments in Brahma Sutra. Why is he doing that? He is explaining here, in very briefly, let's look here. Jalpa and a Vittanda, its technicalities may be used by spiritually inclined people. Like, for example, you are planting a beautiful plant. You are not having any enmity with anyone. But you know, they say that cow is a holy animal, isn't it? Cow is a holy animal, not in your kitchen garden because it will eat up everything you have. So what do you need? You need to rope certain thorny plants, which will be kind of a fence protecting that small kitchen garden or that beautiful garden of flowers that you have, isn't it? Similarly, in order to protect a certain sapling, whatever you're planting there, you do fencing. Similarly, Jalpa and Vitanda sometimes are also done by people who are interested in Tattva or Tattva Jnana. Why? You want to get rid of people who are just trying to harass you, isn't it? Philosophically, because they're very smart. So you also try to defeat them, drive them away, so that you can nicely have a Badakatha of somebody who is sympathetic to you. Okay, so that is what he's saying, that Kantaka Sakha Pravarana. But Pravarana is basically fencing. Okay, so certain times, in order to have that tattva adhyavasya that you want to do in order to protect it. So people take, like for example, now a lot of people are trying to misinterpret a lot of texts of our tradition, right? They have a certain way to look at everything. Like Bhagavan, Lord Vishnu is Vishwa Yoni, but Yoni means they will say Vajayana. It's not the meaning Vishwa Yoni Bhagavan. What does it mean? So Yoni means cause. And for example, linga means what? Chinna, actually. It's a marker. That's what we do in the, you know, linga paramarsha. Anumana is linga paramarsha that we study in Nyaya. But here, linga, they will say phallus, Lord Shiva. Then we say Atma Linga. What do you mean by Atma Linga? Self is the phallus. What do you mean by that? It doesn't make any sense. So you have to look at, there is a particular Mimamsa Shastra regarding how to derive the meaning of any word, but they don't want to look at it. They would like to take it off in a particular thing out of context and say this is the meaning, because that is what's called chala in our thing. We'll discuss that here. So, okay, we have a little few minutes out to finish this verse. Chala jati nigrahasthanehi Parapaksha dusyate jalpe bitandayam sa samanam. So basically, chala is one particular thing. You know, like for example, I'll say, give me 500 rupees. Do you have a 500? You'll say yes. But you give me, you know what? You give me a 5 rupee note, and then you give me a 100 rupee note. Or you give a $5 note, and then you give me a $100 note. You say this is 5. You ask for 500. Take 5 and take 100. What does it mean? That is chala. So you are basically taking a wrong meaning of what was told to you in an argumentation. That is chala. Similarly, there is something called jati. And there are different kind of nigrah sthanas where they'll try to put you there. Parapakya dusyate iti jalpe vitandayam cha samanam. So these particular things. Tatra vitandayam ekena swapakya stapaya eva anena cha sa dusyate eva. What is vitanda? One fellow has a point of view, the other one tries to refute it. We have already discussed that. Jalpe tu ubhayabhyam api swapakya stapaya. In Jalpa, both of them have their own viewpoints. Stapyate Ubhabhyam api paropakshya dushyate iti vishesha, and both they try to defeat each other's opinion, establish their own opinion. Jalpa taduktam yathokta upapanna chalajati nigrahasthana sadhanopalambho jalpa sa pratipakshya stapana hino vitanda. When you are actually not establishing a counterpoint of view, you want to defeat me, but you do. What's your view? Sorry, I'm a Vaitandika. I have mentioned. You tell correctly. I have no view. I'll find fault. I'll look at your structure of argumentation. I'll defeat you, saying your foundation is weak, your extension, your elaboration is weak. I'll defeat you. According to what you said, I have no views of my own. I'm a skillful argumentator. That is the point of view. That is Vitanda. Jalpa, both of them have their own points of views, their ways of argumentation. They want to defeat the other ones. But you know, in all these arguments, there are certain common things they have to agree, both of them. That is udaharana, what kind of examples you are giving, what is the manner in which you are arguing. These are commonalities. Okay. Ataha vitanda dvaya sariratvat jalpo nama naika katha kintu sakti atisaya jnanartham samaya bandhamatrena pavartate iti khandanakaraha. This is Srihasya Mishra's comment. And this particular statement will take a long time because he's only trying to say that this particular thing, vitanda, and these are not ones which is oriented towards finding that tattva jnana. Tattva adhyavasaya paryavasayitvena tu badasya sreshtatvam uttam eva. But the tattva, that tattva adhyavasaya, that is the focus of Bhadakatha. Therefore, Bhagavan says that I am Bhadakatha. Okay, so I am not getting into, there is a lot of uh, definitions and other things here of the Nyaya Sutra, but that will not take us anywhere. The verse number 33. Aksharanam akarosmi dvandaha samasikasya cha ahameva kshayah kalo dhataham visvato mukhaha. Verse number 33. Among the alphabets, I am A. Why? Because you know that is called Brahma. Because everything starts with that. You cannot talk about anything without that A thing, and that is the first. So akaro vai sarva vak. That is the expression for everything. Okay. So it is shrute. Hey. So aksharanam akarosmi dvandaha sam. kinds of samasas, if you remember. Samasanam, samasa. It's like bringing together two words to make it one. So there is a samasyaman and there is a samastapada. So dinam dinam, it becomes pratidinam. There is no dosha. You say nirdosha. For the whole life, you say ajivanam, asamanta, jivanam, so ajivanam. So there are different categories of samasas here. Bhagavan says, I am Dvandva Samasa. What is Dvandva Samasa? Dvandva Samasa, both the things are there. Now, there are different kinds of samasas without getting into too much of it. Abhyay Bhava is Purvapa Pradhana, Tatpurusha is Uttarapada Pradhana. Then you have Karma Dhare, in which one is Visheshana Vishesha Sambandha, like Neela Kamala. So Neela becomes Visheshana or the adjective, Kamala becomes the Vishesha. Tat Purusha, you have already studied like all the vibhaktis come into the picture, right? Karaka and vibhakti come. So Sashti Tat Purusha, Dya Tat Purusha, Tritiya Tat Purusha, all these things are coming into picture. And these are Uttar Prada Pradhana. Then you have Dvigu, and then you also have what is called Divi is like Panchanadya and stuff like that, right? And then you have Bahuvrihi, which is actually referring to something else. Veena Panu Jasyasa, Veena Pani. So Jasyasa, Veena Pani. So you are actually like Veena Pani, that whole thing becomes an adjective, a kind of a descriptive word for someone else. You are actually talking about Saraswati, so you're saying Veena Pani. Veena is in the hands of who's that fellow, that is Veena Pani. So these are Bahubri, but Dvanda, like Rama, Lakshmana, Rama and Lakshmana, both of them are equally present. Why is the Bhagavan choosing Dvanda? Because if you look at Chetana, Achetana, this whole universe is a combination of tools which may be opposite each other. Jada, Chetana, Atma, Paramatma, right? Living, non-living, all that in the Vivarta that we're saying. So Bhagavan very intelligently says that I'm Dvanda among the Samasikasya. Aham eva kshaya kalo. Then he had mentioned that Kalaitam Kalaha, I'm the Kala among the Kalaitas. All those were counting. So I'm Akshaya Kala. So you have Khanda Kala and Mahakala, or Akshaya Kala and Akshaya Kala. So one is time per se, the meta time, and the other one is that limited time. The clock time, as they call it in English. Okay, it's about days and years, and months and stuff like that. The other one is time per se, and I'm that. And Dhataham Vishwato, I'm the foundation of all the multiple presentations, whatever you see. And I think we have crossed time by 5 minutes, so I stop here. So we will do the commentary on verse number 33 tomorrow and move forward. So see you tomorrow. Till then, I'm just ending the YouTube. If you have any questions, you can ask.